This is happening right now in the heart of Jerusalem. And the mainstream media, they're completely silent about it. Guards stationed at one of the most sacred locations in the city have reported something that sent chills down my spine the moment I heard it. At exactly 6 hours and 66 minutes on their watches, yes, you heard that correctly, something beyond explanation unfolded. 7 mysterious figures were seen walking through the ancient streets of Jerusalem. Stay with me until the very end, because what I'm about to share will shake you to your very core. This isn't rumor or coincidence. My friend, have you ever experienced a moment when time itself seemed to bend, when the veil between the spiritual and physical realms grew thin? Because that's exactly what happened here in Jerusalem. When I first heard this report, my heart started racing. These guards are not superstitious men. They're trained professionals, skeptics by nature. And yet, they confirmed it, 7 figures walking in perfect formation, captured and witnessed at a moment that defies natural explanation. But here's what will make your skin prickle. The time they recorded was 6 hours 66 minutes. You might be thinking, that's impossible. There's no such time. You're absolutely right. Because 6 hours 66 minutes becomes 7:06. Do you see it? The transformation. The number 7, the number of divine completion, of perfection. Can you feel the weight of that moment pressing on your spirit? Let's go deeper. Genesis 2 verse 2 tells us, by the 7th day, God had finished the work he had been doing, so on the 7th day, he rested. 7 days of creation. 7 churches in Revelation. 7 seals. 7 trumpets. 7 bowls. The number 7 appears more than 700 times throughout Scripture. And now, 7 mysterious figures walking through Jerusalem at 7:06, the exact moment when 6 hours and 66 minutes became divine perfection. But here's where the story takes on a deeper dimension. Hebrews 13 verse 2 reminds us, do not forget to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing so some have entertained angels without knowing it. Angels, messengers of God, often appear in sevens. Revelation 8 verse 2 describes the 7 angels who stand before the throne of God. My friend, can you grasp what this could mean? Jerusalem, the city of prophets, may have just witnessed something that echoes straight out of Scripture. This isn't any ordinary city. This is the place where Abraham prepared to sacrifice Isaac. Where David danced before the Ark of the Covenant. Where Solomon built his glorious temple. Where prophets spoke the words of the Almighty. This is the same city where Jesus entered on a donkey as crowds shouted, Hosanna. Where he overturned the tables of the money changers. Where he sweat drops of blood in Gethsemane. Where he was crucified, buried, and rose again 3 days later. Every stone of Jerusalem carries divine memory. Every street has felt the footsteps of eternity. And now, 7 luminous figures walking through those same streets at 7:06. Do you really believe that's coincidence? Or is heaven trying to send a message? The guards described what they saw in haunting detail. It was early morning. The first golden light of sunrise touched the ancient stones of the city, the same stones that have witnessed centuries of miracles and sorrow. The 7 figures weren't running or wandering aimlessly. They moved with intention, with purpose. One guard said, and I quote, it was like they knew exactly where they were going, like they had walked those streets countless times before. And maybe they had, think about it. Zechariah 14 verse 4 foretells that the Lord's feet will one day stand on the Mount of Olives. Jerusalem isn't just a location, it's the epicenter of divine prophecy. The guard who first reported them said something that gave me goosebumps. I've been here for 15 years, he said. I've seen pilgrims, priests, rabbis, imams, tourists, but never anything like this. The way they moved, the light seemed to follow them. Another guard added, we tried to approach them. We wanted to ask if they needed help or directions. But every time we got close, they turned a corner, and when we followed, they were already far ahead. They walked at a normal pace, but somehow covered impossible distances. Does that sound familiar? Think back to the two disciples on the road to Emmaus in Luke 24. They walked with Jesus for miles, spoke with him, and didn't recognize him until he broke bread. Then, in an instant, he vanished. Or Philip in Acts 8, after baptizing the Ethiopian eunuch, the Spirit of the Lord suddenly took him away. The supernatural doesn't obey the same laws of time and distance as we do. When heaven invades earth, physics trembles. Now, consider this symbolism. The number 6 in Scripture represents man, imperfection, humanity's frailty. Man was created on the sixth day. The number 666 symbolizes the fullness of human imperfection, the mark of man's corruption. But when 6 hours 66 minutes becomes 7:06, something extraordinary happens. The imperfect gives way to the divine. The human gives way to the holy. It's as though time itself testified to transformation, man's limitation giving way to God's intervention. This is not a random number. God speaks through numbers, times, and seasons. When Nehemiah rebuilt Jerusalem's walls, it took exactly 52 days. When Jesus began his ministry, he was 30. When he was crucified, darkness covered the land from the 6th hour to the 9th. Everything in Scripture carries meaning. So when these guards saw 6 hours 66 minutes before it became 7:06, God was speaking through the impossible, declaring, when human time ends, divine time begins. Write this in your heart, my friend, I believe in divine appointments. Because that's what this moment represents. Luke 21 verse 28 says, when these things begin to take place, stand up and lift up your heads, because your redemption is drawing near. These things are beginning to unfold before our eyes. Jesus himself, seated on the Mount of Olives, answered the disciples' question about the end of the age in Matthew 24. He warned of wars, famines, false prophets, earthquakes, and persecution. But then he said in verses 30 and 31, then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And they shall see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather his elect. Angels, sent forth with divine purpose. Now, I'm not saying those 7 figures are angels. But I am saying the veil between realms is thinning. Heaven is aligning its messengers. Something monumental is approaching. The guards confirmed what they saw, 7 figures at an impossible time that defied natural measurement, and that morning, multiple witnesses began reporting strange stillness. A shopkeeper said the usual morning sounds, cars, voices, vendors, seemed to fall silent, as though the city itself was holding its breath. A woman on her way to morning prayers near the western wall said she felt frozen in place. I saw them, she whispered. 7 figures in white. I thought they were monks, maybe priests. But something in me told me to stop and watch. My body wouldn't move. It was like God said, just witness, that's the same instruction given to the disciples in Acts 1 verse 8, you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem, in all Judea, in Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. It began in Jerusalem then, and it's beginning again now. The city of divine encounters is stirring once more, and here's where it gets even more incredible. One of the security cameras caught the figures on video. The footage was grainy, just before sunrise. But when technicians enhanced it, something astonishing happened. Every part of the frame, the streets, the walls, even other passers-by, appeared crystal clear. But the 7 figures, their faces were veiled in light. Not blinding, but soft and radiant, almost impossible to define, the technician said, it's not a malfunction. The light reacts differently around them. It's like the lens itself couldn't capture them. Does that sound familiar? Moses' face shone after he encountered God on Mount Sinai, so radiant the Israelites couldn't look directly at him. During the Transfiguration, Jesus' face shone like the sun and his clothes became as white as light. When beings from heaven manifest in our realm, their glory distorts what our eyes and even our cameras can handle. Write this down in the comments. Jerusalem is waking up. Because it is, we are living in the most extraordinary season of history. Israel's rebirth in 1948 fulfilled Isaiah 66 verse 8. Can a nation be born in a day? Jerusalem's reunification in 1967 fulfilled Luke 21 verse 24. The Jewish people returning from every corner of the earth fulfilled Ezekiel's prophecy. The desert has blossomed. Hebrew, once a dead language, is alive again. Every prophecy is aligning, and now, 7 radiant figures at 7:06, confirmed by guards in the holiest city on earth. The signs are converging. Heaven is preparing for a new chapter. Amos 3 verse 7 tells us, "Surely the sovereign Lord does nothing without revealing his plan to his servants the prophets." God is speaking through these signs. Not to frighten, but to awaken, Revelation 1 verse 4 says. Grace and peace to you from him who is, and who was, and who is to come, and from the 7 spirits before his throne. 7 spirits. Sevenfold perfection. Isaiah 11 verse 2 names them, the Spirit of the Lord, of wisdom, of understanding, of counsel, of might, of knowledge, and of the fear of the Lord. What if these 7 figures are a prophetic symbol of that Spirit now moving through Jerusalem? What if heaven is announcing, I am here. I am moving. I am preparing. The guards felt it. The witnesses felt it. The city itself responded in silence. The air was thick with the weight of something unseen. Jerusalem is waking up, the spiritual realm is shifting. The patterns of prophecy are unfolding before our eyes. And maybe, just maybe, God is saying, what you thought was impossible is the very moment I reveal my perfection. If you can feel this stirring in your spirit right now, it's because you're being invited to witness it too. This awakening isn't random. It's divine orchestration. The same God who parted the Red Sea, who sent fire on Mount Carmel, who raised the dead and opened blind eyes, is the same God who moves through the streets of Jerusalem today. Nothing escapes his timing. Every number, every light, every step of those 7 figures carries meaning. A pastor from the old city later said, "When I heard about the 7 figures, I felt something shift in my heart. I knew God was trying to get our attention again." That's what this is about, my friend. Attention. Awakening. Alignment. God doesn't hide his movements from those who are watching. He reveals them in plain sight, through symbols, through numbers, through what the world calls coincidence but what heaven calls divine appointment. Look again at the numbers. 6 hours and 66 minutes, an impossibility that transforms into 7:06. Humanity's imperfection yielding to divine order. It's the moment when man's time collapses and God's time begins. This is prophetic mathematics written by the author of time itself. When the guards checked their watches, they stepped unknowingly into a moment of divine calibration. The impossible number testified that heaven was near. As though God whispered through the ticking seconds, what is impossible for man is possible for me. And then came the transformation. This excess gave way to the 7. The symbol of man gave way to the symbol of completion. The imperfect hour turned into God's perfect moment. This wasn't a malfunction of time, it was a revelation of it. The world measures hours, but God measures moments. Holy moments. Appointed times. Kairos moments, where the eternal intersects with the present. That's what happened in Jerusalem that morning. One of the guards, visibly shaken, said later, "When I saw them, it was like my body forgot to breathe. My mind told me to move, but something stronger told me to stay still." That's the same reaction prophets had when encountering the presence of angels. Awe. Stillness. Reverence. A witness near the Jaffa gate described hearing what sounded like faint music, like distant trumpets carried on the morning breeze. It lasted only a few seconds, then faded as the figures turned a corner and disappeared from sight. When asked about it later, others confirmed they'd heard something too. Though none could explain where the sound came from, my friend, Scripture tells us that when angels move, they often carry sound. Revelation speaks of trumpets, Daniel speaks of voices, and in 1 Thessalonians 4 verse 16, the Lord himself descends with the sound of a trumpet call. What if these sounds were echoes of that heavenly order, reverberating through time and space to remind us that heaven is near? This is why it matters. Because signs like these are not given to spark fear, they are given to awaken faith. To call the sleeping to rise. To call the distracted to look up. Luke 21 verse 28 wasn't just a prophecy, it was an instruction. Lift up your heads, for your redemption draws near. The moment you heard 6 hours 66 minutes transform into 7:06, heaven was showing us something profound: man's end is God's beginning. The timeline of imperfection always bends toward divine fulfillment. Every prophecy points toward restoration. Every number testifies to design. Do you remember when the temple veil was torn from top to bottom the moment Jesus gave up his spirit? That wasn't just symbolism. It was heaven breaking through the barrier of time, declaring that the distance between the divine and the human had just been overcome. That same pattern echoes now, through numbers, through light, through 7 mysterious figures walking the same city where redemption first began, and this is only the beginning. Jerusalem has always been the stage where eternity writes its message. When something happens there, it echoes through every nation. From Abraham to David, from Solomon to Jesus, from the prophets to the pilgrims, Jerusalem has never been a random setting. It's the intersection of heaven's story and humanity's timeline, so when 7 radiant figures walked through those streets at the exact moment time itself proclaimed divine perfection, the message was clear: God is still writing. The author of time hasn't closed the book. He's turning a new page. A rabbi who heard of the sighting said something remarkable. 7 figures, he murmured. 7 is the number of covenant, the number of completion. The number that ends the cycle of toil. It means God is about to rest in his people again. Rest in his people again. Let that settle in your heart. Because what's coming next won't just be seen in Jerusalem, it will be felt around the world. When I spoke with someone who reviewed the footage again, he said, the light around them wasn't blinding, it was peaceful. It felt alive. That's how God's presence moves. Not to destroy, but to restore. To draw hearts nearer. Revelation 1 verse 12 describes John's vision. I turned to see the voice that was speaking to me, and when I turned, I saw 7 golden lampstands. 7 again. Each representing the light of the Spirit in the churches. These 7 figures may be the physical echo of that same heavenly pattern, a reminder that God still walks among his lampstands. That his presence hasn't left. One elderly woman who witnessed the event later said, I felt something in my chest, like warmth spreading. I couldn't speak. I just cried. That's what happens when the holy brushes against the human. The soul recognizes what the mind cannot explain. The deeper you look into this, the clearer it becomes. God has always used numbers and signs not to confuse us but to communicate. 7 days of creation. 7 colors in light. 7 notes in a scale. Creation itself hums in 7-fold harmony, echoing divine perfection, and on that morning in Jerusalem. The harmony of heaven briefly resonated in the streets of earth. When the technician enhanced the footage and saw light instead of faces, he didn't know he was looking at a truth older than time itself, that no man can gaze upon pure glory and still remain unchanged. My friend, this is not the moment to shrug it off. This is the moment to pay attention. These signs aren't entertainment, they're invitations. Invitations to look up, to pray, to awaken. Jerusalem is waking up. The world is stirring. Heaven is aligning. Isaiah 60 verse 1 says, Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. That same glory now walks the streets again, unseen by most. Witnessed by few, and declared by faith. The question isn't whether these figures were angels or men. The question is whether you recognize the message they carry, because when time reached its limit, 6 hours 66 minutes, heaven didn't stop. It transformed. It shifted. And the divine stepped in. This is not coincidence. This is convergence. We are living in prophetic days, and Jerusalem remains the clock of the world. Every tick, every number, every sign reminds us that history is aligning toward its appointed hour, so I ask you now, what will you do with this moment, when the guard's watches reached 6 hours 66 minutes, when heaven whispered through the transformation into 7:06, when 7 figures walked those holy streets? God wasn't just revealing a sign. He was issuing a call to awaken. A call to return. A call to be ready, because when man's time runs out, divine time begins. And that time, my friend, is now. Jerusalem is waking up. The earth is responding. Heaven is preparing. You are being invited to witness it. Write in the comments, I am watching. I am ready, because the same spirit that moved through those 7 figures is moving through this message. It's calling hearts to attention. It's whispering to the faithful, behold, I am doing a new thing. The guards saw it. The witnesses felt it. The footage captured its light. And now you've heard it, the question is, will you believe it? Shalom from Jerusalem. And I'll see you in the next revelation. The story isn't over. It's only beginning.